Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's episode of What I Know So Far. Hi, Karen.
Hey, Trish. What's going on?
Honey, I'm so tickled that we're squeezing in a darling, juicy bonus episode already squeezing it in.
I know. It's that time of year.
Award season,
That's
y'all.
right.
When you work in the entertainment business, and even if you don't, some people we just love it. Karen and I'll text each other. It doesn't matter if it's the Grammys, the SAG Awards, but everybody knows that the mothership of award season is the Oscars.
The Oscars. I've loved them my whole life.
Me
I've had
too.
Oscar parties. I've always loved
Yes.
the Oscars. And my friend, Dave Karger, wrote a book. He works for Turner Classic Movies, and he wrote a book, 50 Nights of Oscars. And it is the bomb.
It is so, y'all. Karen told me about it, and I said, "Oh, I'm gonna get that. That sounds fantastic." Because she also knows I love a coffee table book. So I said, "Oh, okay, let me look at it." Well, here it is. I'm going to show it. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can see it. If you are listening to us, you're going to see the link in the show notes. Just trust your girls. Go buy it. But what Karen did is she said, "Hey, you want to have my friend on?" And I was like, "Wait, he'd seriously come on our show?" And I felt fancy when you said that.
I know he so graciously agreed to come on and be on one of our early episodes to talk about the Oscars, and we're so excited to have him.
Well, and let me tell y'all for a little backstory. Dave Carger, not only 17 years as senior writer at Entertainment Weekly, he is also the on-air host at Turner Movie Classics. He has been one of the, I get correspondence, the perfect word, at the Today Show for over 24 years when it comes to the Oscars. So if you need to put the word expert and Oscars next to somebody's name, it's Dave Karger. And we're so tickled that he is so gracious enough to come on with us and talk to us about 50 Oscar Nights, his new book, his first baby book. And it's iconic stars and filmmakers on their career-defining wins. Y'all ready to listen?
And there's such rich little nuggets in there of things. It's not the typical things you learn from, from interviews and things. So he really dug a little deeper and got some cool stories. And I so loved reading this book.
Me too. Are you ready to dive in, y'all, and listen to the interview with Karen and I with Dave? Let's go.
Bring him on.
You gotta be this who you are. You gotta be this who you are. Don't let them sway you. No one can change you. You gotta be this who you are.
We're so tickled you're here. That's all I'm going to say right up front. Dave Carger, I'm so tickled you're here.
So happy.
You've written a baller book. I'm going to throw it right on the screen for those that can't. There we go. 50 Nights of Oscars. It's so good. You know, when you get something, you're like, oh yeah, no, I'll be tickled to read it. I've read it. Like it's kind of like, you can't start in a bad part because you've done such a gorgeous formula, if you will, format. I don't know what you call that. Forgive me. I'm not a writer. But Karen and I both would love to know, what was the impetus for this book?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on this very exciting new project that the two of you are doing. I'm a longtime fan of Karen's. I'm meeting you for the first time, Trish, and it's an absolute pleasure. So 50 Oscar Nights is a book that I wrote in conjunction with Turner Classic Movies, where I work as a host. And TCM puts out several books each year about different aspects of the film world. So they came to me, since I've been a host on the channel for a while, and said, do you want to write a book? And for me, the Oscars have been the centerpiece of my professional life for 25 plus years now. I wrote about the Oscars for many years at Entertainment Weekly magazine. I've been talking about them on the Today Show for the last 24 years, and now on TCM. So I thought I would do a book about the Oscars that came at the topic from a little bit of a different angle. So not so much about the studio politics or the business, but emotional, intimate stories from these very famous people, Meryl Streep and Julia Roberts and Nicole Kidman and Elton John, Steven Spielberg, about what it's actually like to win an Oscar. What does it feel like? What did they do to achieve it? What did they wear in some cases? What did they say? Who did they go with? How did they celebrate? And how they feel about it in some cases 50, 60 years later. So it was so much fun to do. And thank you so much, Trish, for being so kind about it. It is a kind of book that you don't have to read cover to cover. Each person gets a chapter of 4 or 6 pages. You can kind of dive in and pop out whenever you want to and see who interests you at any given moment.
Well, that's okay. Beautifully said, by the way. Thank you. Because I was like, this is such a good. It's a great gift if you have a movie nerd in your life. Because I just thought Karen and I were laughing because we love Coffee Table Chic, and I was like, she's gorgeous, chic in her gold jacket, but also well done. You. I'm showing y'all if you can't. If you're just listening, she's also chic as all get out. If you take off her gold jacket, she's black with gold embossment. So either way, kudos.
She's beautiful.
The writing is amazing, and she's beautiful. And I made her a she. I'm sorry.
She is a she. She's my baby.
Oh,
And
good.
I don't have kids, and I will never have kids. So this is my child. And I can take
Is this your firstborn child?
It is my firstborn. Yes.
She's a beauty.
I was a bit of a late bloomer because I am 50.
Honey,
So,
what a
yeah.
time to make your 50. I mean, I'm tickled for this whole thing. Kay, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just got so tickled about this.
Oh no, what I was going to say is just I am a movie nerd. I am that person that loves the movies, loves the Oscars, loves an award show, and I love the fact that and I'm weird anyway because I'll start reading a book at the back. I don't know why I do that, but I love that that you can pick up the book and just open it anywhere and you get to read about someone and you can put it down and pick it back up later, and there is no you don't have to go from beginning to end. So I love that, and I love so many of these stories, and if you love movies, you're going to love this book.
And I want to know, Dave, how did you choose? I mean, obviously we know there's hundreds, probably thousands of Oscars out there over the years. Because you picked such a beautifully diverse list, which I was like, this is so, like, this was my kind of like, oh, Easter eggs, like really cool. So how did you even decide?
So I knew I had 50 slots. Because I've been covering the Academy Awards for decades now as a journalist and a TV host, I knew that there were people who had really interesting stories about their particular wins. If their win was historic, like Halle Berry, or if they said something really interesting in the speech, like J.K. Simmons, where he told everyone to call their mom or their dad. Because I work at TCM, I wanted to get as many of the classic era people in there as possible. So I do have 6 people in the book who are 90 years of age or older, like Clint Eastwood and Rita Moreno and Estelle Parsons and Lee Grant and Joel Grey, Mel Brooks. And then it was really, really important to me for diversity. So because the Oscars that is a knock on the Oscars over the years, which is that the Oscars have largely been populated by white, straight winners. So in this book, 1/3 of the people are either LGBTQ or performers of color. And that was very, very important to me to have some strong diversity in the book. And then other than that, 35 of the people in the book were people that I've interviewed before. And then 15 were people that I've kind of always wanted to interview and was happy that they said yes to my request.
Is there anyone that you would love to interview that you haven't had the opportunity to?
I've never interviewed Barbra Streisand. I have met her.
Ooh,
Oh,
that'd
you
be a
have?
good
Wow.
one.
I've never interviewed her. Of course, she's won 2 Oscars, including when she won Best Actress, and she tied with Katharine Hepburn in a very rare Oscar tie. I did
There
reach
was a
out.
tie. I didn't see Dave.
I
This is
remember
why
that.
Dave is here, y'all. So and forgive me for not knowing that. Did they hand 2 out? Is that what happened?
Yes.
Yes, so Barbara won for Funny Girl, and Katharine Hepburn won for Lion in Winter on the same year because it was a tie. And so they both get up and, well, actually, they didn't both get up because Katharine Hepburn never went to the Oscars.
Yes.
So Barbra Streisand was there, and that's when she said, "Hello, gorgeous," and looked at the trophy. But yeah, so I would have loved to have had her in the book, but she was busy writing her own book, which of course is out and has been a huge success. So I wasn't able to talk to her. One day.
That's a pretty big, and you will. I mean, we all know that'll occur. She could actually probably just be her own book of Oscars, because I'm sure as many times she's probably done over 50 nights on her own.
Exactly. She's a fixture for sure.
She really is. I want to say, because I was really impressed with the way you formatted it, which for me, each story, I started getting excited for to the perspective, which I thought was super cool, the backstory that I loved, but where everybody keeps their Oscar now, which I thought was so well done by you, sir, because I was like, that's the stuff. If you ever had the honor to meet someone or you're friends with someone, that has an Oscar, I've always thought, well, where do they keep that? Like, do you move it around? And I love that some people said yes. I love people that have multiples or like they're in one home, they're in another. I'm like, good for you, sis.
Right. Yeah.
What was the question for you? Like, what were the questions? And you're like, I'm going to come up with this. Was that just something you've always wanted to know?
Yeah, I just think it's really intriguing. Like if I had one, I would carry it with me everywhere I went. But every possible answer to this, people leave it in their bathrooms, people leave it in their bedrooms, people had it closed away in a cardboard box for years until like your husband said, why not have this out? You earned it. You should have this out. So I liked the fact that some people were like, yeah, I don't need it around. Other people, Marlee Matlin, she has it right behind her where she sits so that when she gets on a Zoom, people immediately see it. I just appreciated that everyone has a different kind of relationship with this big achievement that they had.
I would wear mine around my neck.
Yeah, no, I was thinking I'd have like an acrylic purse, like that looked like a little safe, and carry it and be like, oh, he's something. Just carry him around.
He hates to be alone. I had to bring him.
Yeah, he really does. He's codependent, but we're working on it. So let me ask are you going to do another book? Because you did it so beautifully that I thought, man, can become a whole franchise of greatness.
My publisher does want a second book, so I am in the process of figuring out what that's going to be. Is it going to be 50 more Oscar nights, another 50 Oscar nights, or was it going to be something completely different? I need to do some thinking and talk to them and see what they think the best plan of attack would be. But this was so much fun to do. It was a lot of work, not just the interviewing and the writing, but just quite frankly, the wrangling of people. Because these are people who have, Meryl Streep, Julia Roberts, Nicole Kidman, a lot of demands on their time.
That's what I was wondering is how you were able how long it took you to get with all these people.
The whole process, Karen, took 7 months. So from like the first outreach that I made to people, this was in July of 2022. So I did all the interviews between July of 2022 and January of 2023. So I basically finished the book a year ago, but it takes a long time to print and publish and choose the photos and all of that. So yeah, it was, when I tell people 7 months, everyone says, wow, that's so fast. It didn't seem fast to me because it was just a lot of emailing and reminding people.
Logistics.
But it was worth it. And some of the interviews were in person, but a lot of them were on Zoom, which made it easier because I wasn't asking anyone to do hair and makeup. I wasn't asking anyone to go anywhere. They could just do it from wherever they were. But I did get to do some in person. Elton John's interview was in person, Clint Eastwood, Joel Grey, Lee Grant. So some of them, it was really special to get to spend time with these people for this book.
That was interesting that Elton thought Circle of Life should have been the one that won instead of Can You Feel the Love Tonight?
Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Yeah. So for anyone in the book who has more than one Oscar, including Elton John, I let them choose which year they wanted to talk about. So he just about the Lion King year. And yes, he's very grateful, of course, that he has the Oscar for Can You Feel the Love? And it's a beautiful love song, but he does think that because Circle of Life starts off the movie and ends the movie, he thinks that's the more kind of emblematic song of the movie. And it is a song that he, in his later touring years, it's a song that he actually performed. He very rarely performed Can You Feel the Love Tonight? So I think Circle of Life is the song that kind of was more meaningful to him anyway.
Isn't that, this is what first of all, Turner Movie Classics, if y'all are listening, the book is so good. I feel like it also needs to be a series. Like I would watch episodically in chunks of 5. I don't know. I'm not producing it for y'all, but here, y'all could just invite me as a consulting producer. You're just so good at the storytelling. I think there's something really powerful, and I would watch this because you got so much honesty out of people in these interviews that I thought was really, I felt like I was talking to them, which is obviously a sign of an amazing journalist because it was so personal.
Well, that was the goal. And for people who read the book, you'll see that each chapter starts off with an introduction that I write of a few hundred words just to kind of tee up what people should know as they're about to read this interview. But once the chapter really gets going, the interview doesn't even have my questions in it. It's just their words, because I really wanted it to have that feeling of intimacy as if these people were telling you their stories. And Trish, I appreciate the thought. I actually did do something kind of similar to what you're saying on TCM. When the book came out, I actually did 2 nights of movies that are discussed in the book. So I got to kind of tee up Meryl Streep and Estelle Parsons and Mel Brooks and some of the people who won for movies that we show on TCM, like Sophie's Choice and Children of a Lesser God and the producers. And I did get to tell some stories. So maybe we'll have to do a couple more nights of.
I'm just saying, TCM, don't step over the fact you've got Dave Carger, and these stories are brilliant. And I was so in. I think that's what is so, when I read it, I was like, okay, I'm a TV nerd, so I'm not as much a movie nerd. But let me tell you that this is so beautifully done and well written and compelling, which, again, all things I don't really think of when I'm going, okay, I'll just hear some stories. But it was like eating potato chips. You couldn't put it down because the stories were so good, and that you gave all the information I needed to be like, I'm in. I got to read the next one. I'm in.
Well, I hope that this book inspires people to do 2 things. One, go on YouTube and watch these people's acceptance speeches, because in many cases, they're really fun and dramatic. But I also hope that this book inspires people to actually watch some of these 50 movies that are discussed, because it's some of the best. I mean, Sophie's Choice, Children of a Lesser God, Norma Ray, The Lion King. Of course, everyone's already seen that.
I love that you had Once in there, because that movie, that independent film, is one of my all-time favorite. I always say it's an Easter egg movie. If you were lucky enough to watch it, it doesn't leave you. But it was such a great story because of was it Alan Menken? Is that correct? They for the song. And I just remember that well, because I thought, oh, great for this couple, because they were a couple at the time, but they're also in it. And that you put that in there, I went, how well done, because independent films in the beginning, now it's obviously very different because they are a little more studio pushed, but in the beginning of independent films, they really were just little unicorns. And so you did a great job again in that storytelling. And I was like,
and there's a really great story about that couple, which is the reason I put them in the book. And I didn't know the full story. What I remember about them winning was that they won for Best Song, for the song is called Falling Slowly from the movie Once. And they got up, and Glenn, one half of the winning couple, gave his speech. And then the woman, Marquetta, went to just say thank you. And that's all she was going to say. But it seemed like she had a speech to make, but the music started playing her off. So she said thank you and then got off. And Jon Stewart, who was the host that year, said, I think Marquetta should come back and give her speech. And everyone said yes. So she comes back and gives this beautiful, inspiring speech. It turns out she wasn't planning on even making a speech. All she wanted to say was thank you. But because it came off like she wanted to, Jon Stewart brought her on, and she just came up with that off the top of her head, and it was a beautiful moment. So I knew about the second speech, but I didn't know it was unplanned. So
that makes it. Yes, the second speech. That's what I remember, was how just moving and summation. And you said, I think you actually quoted perfectly, but it was like, don't give up on your dreams, because this was like such a moment. And I'm sitting there crying. I remember watching it in real time. And like when I was reading that, I was like, oh, you didn't even plan. This is amazing. So again, what a great, unbelievably great moment that we wouldn't have known existed had you not written this book.
Me either.
Thank you.
I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that the director of Sophie's Choice was not even going to consider an American actress.
Wasn't
and
that
then
interesting?
when Meryl auditioned, he said, "Okay, this just threw a monkey wrench in my plans, because no one could have done that better than Meryl Streep." Meryl Streep, to me, I mean, I refer to the best toaster oven as the Meryl Streep of toaster. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what you pick, any item. It's the Meryl
gold
Streep
standard.
I know.
I've always wondered if eventually we'll change the Oscar to just Meryl.
Meryl.
The Meryl.
Well, let me tell you, she was the one. She was kind of like, do I call her the golden goose? No, she was the holy grail. She was. Listen, I said, if I'm writing a book that has the word Oscar in the title, this book cannot come out without Meryl Streep in it. And I had to be very persistent. Not that she didn't want to do it. She was just very busy. And I had to extend the deadline for her, and I did. And when I finally got her, it was so worth it. And as I said, for anyone with more than one Oscar, I let them choose. And she has 3. And she she delighted me when she said she wanted to talk about Sophie's Choice, because I love Kramer versus Kramer. I love The Iron Lady, the other two movies that she won for. But for me, Sophie's Choice, that's the best performance ever put on film by anybody. And it's just shocking that she was able to do it, and she's not Polish and she's not German, and she's just unbelievable. And I just loved talking to her. I could have talked to her forever.
Oh,
That's, and again, y'all, please, we're not saying this just because Dave's from heaven. You got to get this book, or if maybe, you got a Mother's Day gift or a graduation, if somebody's going to film school, this is one of those books that you're like, I want it. Everybody will come over and just start picking up and reading it, and you can't stop. I loved Hilary Swank. What an amazing, like you put a lot of people in there that I think people forget, because once you hit the Oscar, you've peaked, and it freaks people out a little bit. And I thought a lot of people were very honest. Allison Janney's, to me, was one of the great stories, and Octavia Spencer's, because they were all friends coming up, and then their best writer friends wrote the movies that were their Oscar winning. I'm like, it was a Hollywood script in itself, but that stuff I didn't know that you got out, that I was going, Dave, this is amazing. Like, that was what's so great, is there's these really great stories that you did such an amazing job of, like, connecting the dots for fans.
Right.
That I was like, oh, well, the next one's going to be this crazy too.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, there was so many little nuggets in there that were so fun for me to hear about. And then once the interview was done, to kind of craft it into a story that felt like a good story. And
Yes.
that was the challenge of it, but it was a fun challenge. And and the stories are so different. Some are so
Yes.
overwhelmingly positive, and others are definitely more complex. And people had mixed feelings about the whole experience, or things that weren't going so well in their lives around the time they were winning an Oscar. So that's what I like about it, is that each story is completely different from the one that comes before or after.
and I certainly learned why Sally Field needed to move on from Burt Reynolds. I
Not a
mean,
very
wouldn't even go with her to the Oscars. I mean, and I loved Burt Reynolds' movies, but man, what an ego that he couldn't.
He
just
was a
support
salty
her.
mother trucker. That one's
Ooh.
salty.
Man,
I mean, what do you think that is? Was it just like jealousy, or
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
control?
Yeah.
no
Let me
doubt.
tell you something. Her little bright shiny star, her light shined, and it drove him butt buckle crazy, as they like to say in the country. He couldn't get around it. And I mean, you can't put out little Sally Field, no matter what version you get of Sally Field, you can't put her little sparkle out. So I'm sure that just tore him up.
Yeah, and she told me as you know, she told me in the interview that when the movie Norma Ray got accepted into the Cannes Film Festival, and she told him, "I'm going to go to Cannes," his response was, "Well, you don't think you're going to win anything, do you?"
I mean,
know,
hateful
I know.
heifer,
I
mean as a
couldn't
striped snake.
Oh, I can't even.
I mean, you know what? I'm a love and light, not speaking hateful of the deceased, but love and light. Bert. There's a reason he had to lay in Playgirl with a staple on his doings.
And I love Whoopi's story too with Ghost, and that Patrick didn't want to do it without her. And what a so rare does a comedic performance win an Oscar. So
That's right.
That was incredible. I love that story.
I really think she became the gold standard truly for that, because I can't remember a performance. Obviously, I've always thought there should be a comedy category, but it's a total different bag of chips. And I know the Academy probably poo-poos that. I don't know. I'm just making that up, but it feels that way. And she did such a gorgeous job in that role of taking something that was really just, it rode the line the whole way, and did it as, I don't think another actress, I've thought so many times, because you know how they love to remake a movie, Hollywood, Lord goodness. I'm like, please don't remake Ghost. Please don't remake Ghost. Because you just don't want anybody to mess with the greatness of that casting. It was perfect all the way through.
Whoopi was one of the people that I had never met when I did this book. And it turns out she watches TCM, which made me so happy. And we had a great time chatting. And she said when people come over, she wants everyone to hold their Oscar, because that her superstition is that if you hold one, you're going to win one.
Oh, I'm going to ask if I can come over.
Her house for an Oscar. She was a delight.
I love her. I love her. She's one of the reasons I went into comedy, because I was just like, she's one of the neatest things I've ever seen. I can remember all her specials that I had to beg to watch as a little kid. And I was like, she's the greatest. So again, another amazing story. David, you're so good. You're so good. I'll literally, if you wrote the Starbucks menu down, I'd read it. You're good. You're just a great storyteller, and I appreciated it.
It also has really good photos, which I spent a long time choosing with this great photo editor that I worked with, Eileen Flanagan, and it was so much fun to go. It was time consuming, but also fun to go through these different photo archives. And you mentioned Allison Janney. There's a picture of her at the end of her chapter with Stephen Rogers, her good friend, who wrote I, Tonya, the movie that she won the Oscar for. And she's kissing him on the cheek.
Yes, I have it. Oh, it's so good. Yes.
Neither Allison nor Stephen had ever seen that photo before until.
Oh, wow.
It's just Kay, look, I'll show you if you're watching on the YouTube, everybody. Darling, and it's very precious and sweet and time served, right? Life done with somebody. It's so you grabbed a lot of moments like that, I feel like, in there. Even that shot of Rita Moreno, when I first saw it, I went, is that Natalie Wood? Like, you forget. I did. Like, Rita was like a porcelain doll of just stunning because she was always in motion. So it was rare to see her not in motion. And I was just like, just everything about her iconic. So I loved that she was in there. Love.
And talk about aging well.
Oh my goodness.
My. She is ageless.
Whatever her secret sauce is, if she could just go ahead and put that.
And she's so sharp, guys. I think she's 92 now. And her recall, and she's the longest to go winner in the book because she won in 1962 for West Side Story. Wow. And the stuff that she remembered in such fun detail was remarkable.
She's just a class. Y'all, please get this book because it covers, it is all the way back to the classics, but you've covered almost every, not only decade, but genre, from like musicals to, you think about you did such a gorgeous job, from independent films to Boys Don't Cry with Hilary Swank. What an amazing, like, that was a huge change of what the Academy was even putting eyes on. So you just did a gorgeous job top to bottom, from even choosing the winners for what they won. Like, I noticed, for me, I felt like that was a little Easter egg of how you told the stories as well. So you're just good, Dave.
Thank you
Dave,
so much.
Let me ask you, did you talk to Dustin Hoffman?
Dustin Hoffman, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I know he's in the book, but you talked to him recently, and he told you the whole thing about all the controversy and everything.
Oh, tell me. Wait, what? I need to know.
In the mid-1970s, when he was nominated for Best Actor for a movie called Lenny, he decided not to go to the Oscars. He had been nominated a couple times before, but he didn't go. And he gave an interview where he said he just didn't like the whole concept of pitting Oscar actors against each other and having winners and losers. And so he just said, I just don't like it. And so he didn't go. And he told me the story in the book about how he was sitting in New York at like a viewing party, just watching the Oscars that year with some people. And Frank Sinatra was up on stage that year. And he said, well, we're all here at the Oscars. And contrary to what Dustin Hoffman thinks, I don't think the Oscars are vulgar or a waste of time. And the whole audience in the auditorium applauded, like, against Dustin Hoffman. And Dustin Hoffman told me that he was sitting at this party and everyone was looking at him and he started trembling. And when he did then go back to the Oscars a few years later, when he was nominated again for Kramer versus Kramer and won, he really wanted to use that opportunity to try to explain where he was coming from and make amends a little bit and be back in people's good graces. So I think he was very relieved to have won. And if you go back on YouTube and watch his speech for Kramer versus Kramer, the first of the two Oscars that he won, you can see him trying to fix that situation years later. It's interesting.
Isn't that amazing? You know, we don't think about that. I don't think about, you think of these like iconic actors, but you don't think of them having what would almost be a misstep, if that's even a thing to them. And especially somebody like Frank Sinatra telling you, it's like your papa going, have a glass of Act Right. You know, big pat on the wrist. So
yeah, good story.
Has he just retired now from acting?
I don't think he's fully retired. He is in his upper 80s, I believe.
Oh,
so
no.
And he's doing less. He did just make an appearance in LA for an anniversary screening of, I think it was The Graduate, which surprised some people. But but he did make a movie a year ago with Sissy Spacek. I forget the name of it. So he's active, But of
I
course,
did
not.
not know he's in his 80s.
I did not
Isn't that
realize
amazing?
that either. Wow, time flies. And he spoke. You wrote about how to do your very first movie and it be such an iconic film like The Graduate.
Oh,
I mean, that's crazy for it to be your very first movie.
I know. Where do you go from there? He's 86. I just looked it up.
Oh wow.
86. Stop it right now.
Yeah.
That's not possible. It's like you freeze your favorite actors in time, I feel like, right? And you did it like Julia Roberts. I was reading hers, which was another, just a fun one because I think I have anyway, I've always rooted for Julia. And to think about what she ended up winning for, because when I was younger, I thought, oh, she had Still Magnolia in the bag. Like in my mind, I remember thinking, oh my gosh. And one of my greatest favorite interviews in life was when Oprah interviewed the cast of Still Magnolias.
Still
I'm sure we've
Magnolias.
all, as a Southerner, Karen knows it. As a Southerner, it's a staple. But she interviewed the cast, and Julia Roberts, it was really her first, obviously Mystic Pizza, but it was her first kind of big film. And she was on set 'cause they were shooting in Louisiana or somewhere just hateful hot and pretending it was summer. And so they had them all sweaters and, they were pretending it was Christmas and they were dying of heat and all the mess. And Julia would complain every day about how these wigs are heavy, these sweaters are hot. And she turned to Dolly Parton to try to get Dolly on the bandwagon to be like, aren't you dying? You're wearing the most wigs and sweaters of all of us. And Dolly's like, and Karen will tell the exact what she said, but Dolly basically went, honey, I dreamed of this my whole life. There ain't nothing coming out of my mouth that's going to sound like a complaint. So you do you is basically what Dolly said.
Yeah,
And
no, yeah.
smiled.
Dolly said no. She said, I don't care how hot it is. This is fulfilling my dream, and I'm not going to complain about it. And Julia said, well, let me just crawl back under the chair. She was very funny about the response, and she told it on Oprah, and it was a good lesson to be grateful
For all of us to be grateful. But I realized at that moment, I was like, it was very new. They weren't going to give it to her for that new, I think, and I'm sure she didn't want to win maybe on some level that new. So when you wrote, and it was so beautifully said, when you wrote about it in Erin Brockovich, and she was just like, I'm just, I'm just great tickled to be here. She had that full attitude of like, cool. And she looked like Oscar Barbie. Like she had the dress, the Valentino dress, the hair, everything about her looked like what you want an actress to look like on Oscar night when you were a little kid.
That was such a great moment. And I think in retrospect, she said she was happy she didn't win either for Steel Magnolias or Pretty Woman because she kind of compared that to like peaking in high school.
Yes,
And
that was a great line too, by the way, when she said that.
yeah,
Really well said. So just y'all, I'm going to say it 100 times. Go snatch this book up. You will not be disappointed. You will not be disappointed. Give it as a gift. If somebody loves a movie, they will not be disappointed. You can get it wherever you find books. And David, where can we find you on social media?
I am on Instagram. I'm on X, which I'm now calling X instead of Twitter, right?
Yes, I know. I don't know what to call it either.
And at both of those, I'm at Dave Carger, Karger.
Well, you're from
I'm
heaven.
on TCM every Saturday afternoon and every Monday night. Those are my two regular time slots on Turner Classic Movies.
Well, guess who's going to be
say
watching
that
all the
again.
time? Yeah.
I'm on Turner Classic Movies every Saturday afternoon, starting at noon Eastern Time. And I'm on every Monday night, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Those are my
Great.
two
Awesome.
8-hour long time slots.
Well, I'm going to fangirl and watch you now. And I'm so tickled because you've got a new fan in me. And I think you're brilliant.
Thank you so much. Great to meet you.
Thank you, Dave.
Karen, great to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you, Dave. Thanks.
You know
for
what I want to
coming
ask
on.
real quick, David? So I want to have it separate, just what I want to know. Just because the podcast, David's called What I Know So Far. And this is a little off. It's improv for you, but if you have an answer, it'd be great. I would love to know in life, after all that you've done and all you've accomplished, what you know so far to be true for you.
What I know to be true for myself is that I'm so glad I really followed my passion as a kid. My childhood passion was not running around in the woods like most kids or playing sports. Mine was music and TV and film. And even though my parents were like, what are you doing? Watching all this TV and listening to all this music. That's what I did. And I even throughout college, whenever I could throw a class in there that was an elective that was about music or film, I did it. And because I did that as a kid and followed my passion and what I was really interested in, I have a career now that does not feel like work. It feels like fun 75% of the time. And I would encourage anyone out there at whatever age, follow your passion, become an expert in something that you love, because that will open up doors that you can never imagine.
I love that answer so much. It makes me joyful. Even
Oh,
though you
that's-
went to Duke. I'm from Kentucky, but
Yes, fantastic answer, Dave.
that was a great answer.
Great
You're just a
advice.
doll baby. I know. We can't wait for the next time we get to talk to you.
Anytime. And good luck
Thank
with this new podcast. I can't wait to listen to it.
Thank you, hon.
Thank you,
All right.
Dave.
Anytime.
Karen, I'm gonna say thank you to you first, because you introduced me to your sweet friend Dave Carger. What is he not magical?
He is. Dave is such a great guy. We do not hold it against him that he went to Duke. I mean, we're
I
letting that
know,
go.
bless it.
But
It's
he-
okay. Love and light.
But no, he's such a smart guy. He's followed his passion. I just love that he loves the movies and loves what he does so much and is so passionate about it, and has brought these great nuggets to us of all these stars that I've loved for years.
I agree, and I'll say it again. I know I said it in the interview to nauseum. You'd think I was his publicist, but y'all get this book, because I wasn't really. I was like, well, you know what? I'll get it to read it. And I bought it, y'all. They didn't send it to me. I spent my hard dollars to go get this book, and I'm so glad I did, because this is the kind of book you'll kind of pick up and read all the time. And if you have a movie buff in your life, it's so well written, because I felt like I was actually talking. That's when you know someone's a great journalist, when it's written and you feel like you're in the conversation with that person. So pick it up. It's phenomenal. I'm going to show it again. This is her in her gold jacket. Ooh, if you're watching on YouTube, there she is. And if you want, you can take her out of the gold jacket. I'm going to show that again. Look how gorgeous. Ooh,
Yes.
black with that chic. Yes, honey. So either way, she's a winner. So he was just such a joy. And you know what? I think we're going to just ask that question from here on out. What I know so far. I think I just felt like asking him. And what do you think, Kay? I feel like everybody. I want to know what everybody knows so far.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we can say what we know so far, but we can also learn from what other people have learned. So I'm all about
If that
it.
ain't the truth, if that ain't the truth, I mean, that'll preach right there. I love learning that. And again, couldn't have been more thrilled to have quality time with you. But thank you for introducing me to your amazing friend, Dave, because wow. I think he's so cool. And this book is awesome sauce. So y'all run out and snatch one up. We're tickled if you are listening to us. Thank you. Go follow us. Follow the show. Tell us who you want to hear, what guests you want to have on. We're lucky enough to be friends with some super fun people in all different walks of life. Who do you want us to have on? And we'll do it. We'd love to hear it, and give us a 5-star review, and maybe we'll read it on the air. And when we have some merch, we could, start giving away as a prize. Look at me. I'm just forecasting goodness.
And thank you for listening to what I know so far.
We love y'all. We'll see you soon.